So I know I'm aware that you're, would like to build a garage, and I'm just curious if we could do a financial analysis of, by having the garage, how much money do we save through less maintenance and extending the life of the truck, and then applying that to whatever financing we have to do to actually build and see, is it a break even? Is there some payoff there? So as we have those conversations, if you get it.
So something else that you can't really measure is, when the guys go out to plow the roads, when the trucks sit outside, it takes them a good half hour to an hour to leave the yard because you can't keep the salt in the truck, because otherwise it will freeze there. So by the time that they load and then they leave, it could take a half hour to an hour. If they were stored indoors, they would be able to leave almost right away.
Right. So those are the types of things that we should look at and put dollars to it so we can make a better decision about spending money to build a garage. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any other counties or municipalities near us that keep their equipment indoors?
Just about everybody does.
That's what everybody else does?
Yeah, we're, as far as I'm aware, we're the only ones in the area that do.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Webster?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Carlos, for doing this. I think it's important for all of my colleagues to know conditions of our roads and the need for more financial input here to get these roads up to snuff. You saw those pictures of the edge of the road crumbling the way it is along the white lines. That's typical of what our rural roads look like. They need help, something fierce. It's been a pleasure to work on the Public Works Committee all these years, particularly with having David and Bert and myself all had some experience doing this type of work for a living. And as far as the maintenance on these trucks goes, going back to Mr. Arena's questions there, we, at the state level there, all the equipment is kept indoors. So the rule of the day after snowfall event is all those trucks get thoroughly washed, and not just the outside, the pretty parts, but the underneath. Power washers running underneath those to blow out all of the salt and the crud that's in there. And the purpose of that is to get all that junk out of there, because one of the first things that goes on these trucks that are in those salty conditions is the oil pan. Those things rot out in a season if they're not, if they're not properly kept up. Huge maintenance costs. Wiring gets underneath there, is all caked up with salt and that. It rots the wiring out like you can't believe. And these things happen, and the lights go out. Crazy things happen when they aren't properly maintained. So for that purpose alone, keep them clean and perhaps warm. You don't have to have them plugged in. Outside, they got electric wires running outdoors to all the trucks to keep them plugged in. Now, that's not too safe either, stumbling out there to unplug your truck when you get called in the middle of the night and there's 2 feet of snow on it. So that's not good either. And the analogy that Mr. Dotson used about if your roof was leaking, having to just put a tarp over it to keep, that's the condition. That's a good analogy for the condition of our roads, of many of our roads. And I'll tell you this there, like you're going on what he said, like your own driveway in your home. Your driveway's 30 years old, you wouldn't let it crumble into that condition. Somehow or another, you'd find it in your budget. Maybe not this year, honey, but next year we definitely got to get that sealed because we're going to lose our driveway. We can't afford to put a new driveway in. So we maintain our personal stuff like that. We should maintain our public utilities in the same manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members? No? Oh, yes, Ms. Gorel.
Friday night, I went over the Roscoe Road Bridge. Had I known what was underneath it, I would have taken Latham Street, but is that as bad too?
It doesn't have wood blocks underneath it.
If we only knew what was underneath these bridges.
All right.
Excuse me, trust me, if the bridge wasn't safe, it would be closed.
I know, but now I know it's there.
All right, any other questions, discussion? All right, Carlos, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to we do not have any public hearings this evening, public participation. I'll read the statement here. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers may not address zoning matters which are pending before the ZBA, zoning committee, or the county board. Personnel matters or pending or threatened litigation may not be addressed in open session. An individual may speak a maximum of 3 times per calendar year on the same topic. This prohibition shall include the repetition of the same topic in a statement on what is purported to be a different topic. Personal attacks or inappropriate language of any sort will not be tolerated. Tonight we have 2 speakers. The first is Reverend Earl Dotson, Sr. Thank you.
The Bible. After this, Jesus revealed himself again. They got into the boat, but caught nothing. And he said, cast the net on the right side. And now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishing. Casting on the right side in obedience to the master brings startling results. It gives great comfort and confidence to be on the right side in supporting our country's efforts in rebuilding its economy by lessening its dependence on its enemies, especially Communist China. As they continue to threaten Taiwan, that might cause the United States to come to its aid. This is a dangerous situation, brothers and sisters, as Taiwan produces almost all of the semiconductors in the world, and every computer that you use is dependent upon these devices. Almost all cars are run by them. Strengthening the United States is its manufacturing sector with legislation and billions of dollars in such an effort, especially chip manufacturing. Again, without which none of our computers would work and few cars would run. Being on the right side means having a training facility like Church School, teaching advanced manufacturing, and this patriotic effort creating high-paying jobs for a disinvested community. This is in contrast to the idiocy espoused by some who want a senior citizen home with low-paying job in such a community. Ask yourselves, which would you rather have for a community that's been disinvested, low-paying jobs in a senior citizen place, or jobs in advanced manufacturing, helping our country in a dangerous situation where the jobs can run from $70,000 to $120,000 a year without a college degree. This is sad. Certainly we will be asking the county and others to support this financially. China must enjoy reading about such moronic behavior. We're in a dangerous, dangerous situation. You just don't want to put a senior citizen home, and you can bet almost all of the people in there will be black, when the United States Army had a garrison 4 blocks from that area, and they had to close it down because of crime and vandalism. Get with it, brothers and sisters. I close by quoting this from the Civil Rights theme song. The truth shall make us free. The truth shall make us free. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe the truth shall make us free.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. John Tack Brantley.
Chairman.
Good evening.
Before I get here, so I can use a part of my, get that little extra minute in here. Good evening, board members. The last time I was here was, before the corona hit. My first question is to ask, we think that's a very good idea with the cameras, on the doors. And we got a constituent, one of my constituents that live on Kilburn, next to, St. Paul Lutheran, Church. She would love to, have one of them cameras. And I just need to know the process of getting that. Now I'm finna piggyback off of the highway commissioner. You know, we've been doing the walking school bus. I started doing 150 miles a week transporting kids from Fairgrounds to Lewis Lemon and Ellis School every day. I've been averaging 20 and 30 kids that I transport to school. Now, because the gas went up, I went from $60 to $130 that I pay out of my pocket in order to transport the kids. And then the other day we had the West Gateway Coalition meeting. The city work department came there and was talking about we're gonna work on Auburn Street from Springfield to North Main. We're gonna build a center lane and a bike path. I said, really? What about building a bike path from Concord housing area on West State Street that go to Pierpont, through Pierpont where we got Kennedy Middle School, we got McIntosh, and we got Auburn School. We don't have a bike path. You know what irks me the most is when I'm taking kids to school, to Kennedy and McIntosh School, we have a lot of very inconsiderate drivers. There should be a sign. I talked to the City Hall. I'm going to the Board of Education, bring it to their attention so we can circle the wagon. We should have a bike path going from Johnson Street on School Street, going to Pierpont, so the kids, you got little bitty kids walking to McIntosh School. We got little bitty kids walking, going to Lewis Lemon and Ellis School. They should have a bike path there. We can get with the school system where they can build up bike racks so the kids can be able to bring their bikes there. We would cut down on the number of traffic with cars and carrying on. You talk about the immune system with the gas and all that. And then we need to put up a sign and let them know that this is the bike path for the kids to walk in and the bike path for the kids to ride their bike to school. And I just like to see a show of hands of who against a bike path going down Pierpont for our kids that's walking to school every day. When that young man got hit on Broadway to go to East High School, they jumped on it right away. I'm not here to complain about the critical race theory. When I went to the seminar they had at Rock Valley College today, when I drove past Alpine, they got a bike path from Alpine going all the way to Rock Valley College, and we don't have a bike path on the west side for our kids that's walking to school every day. And I'm going to just conclude that we plan on this our 10th year doing the Great America Cleanup, and we also looking for some funds to help us do the Mother's Day cookout and what have you. So if y'all want to contribute and what have you, I look forward to seeing y'all support the Renewal Turning Point Program, because just like Jesus said, the work is plentiful, but the workers are few. And just
Thank
like
you.
the school said, we got 380 kids that go to Lewis Lemon School.
Thank you, Mr. Brantley. Your time is up.
I'm just finished with this. 77% of them are being absent from school because of transportation and because of the corona. We only putting a dent in it. Thank you for allowing
Thank
me
you.
to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Brantley. Okay, we'll move on to proclamations. All right, tonight's first proclamation is in recognition of the 33rd anniversary of the Great American Cleanup in Winnebago County, Illinois. Mr. Manzullo. You're a legend. All right, whereas Keep Northern Illinois Beautiful is a local nonprofit dedicated to preserving our local environment through education, community involvement, and public awareness. And whereas Winnebago County is proud of its natural resources and neighborhoods and seeks to protect and improve our community through the actions of our citizens, government, and businesses working together. And whereas on April 30th, 2022, thousands of volunteers from neighborhood groups, adopt-a-highway programs, and service organizations will gather to clean up our community. Now therefore, I, Joseph V. Shirelli, Chairman of the Winnebago County Board, do hereby proclaim the day of April 30th to be the 33rd anniversary of the Great American Cleanup in Winnebago County, and I urge all citizens to join in cleanup projects throughout the county on April 30th, 2022, and to remember to work every day to keep our community clean, green, and healthy. Congratulations. There's your proclamation. If you want to say a couple words. Sure.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The founder of Keep Northern Illinois Beautiful is right next to me here. Board, citizens of Winnebago County, this is our 33rd annual Great American Cleanup. Pray for no rain Saturday, all right? This is my 14th appearance here. I think some of you guys have been here every appearance I've come. Anyway, this has been a bad year. We've had a long extended winter. A lot of carryouts go out the window. We see the litter all over Rockford. It's one of the worst years we've ever had. And also, too, we're getting people kind of slow signing up because of cold weather. We got 1,200 sign up right now. Gave Dr. Jared a call. He's doing all the schools. We have about 800 kids out doing all the schools. McDonald's approached us about a week ago, and this, what do you folks need for food for all your volunteers, as did Burger King. So we had some great people out here. We had Pepsi out there, Frito-Lay, Costco, some great companies that are supporting us. Several board members here do have crews going out. And by the way, I want to thank Carlos, back to my good friend Carlos. What an asset to the county he is. Over the years, we worked shoulder to shoulder, and he knows where every single plastic bag is in this county, believe you me. If anybody could pinch your penny, it's Carlos. Thank you, Carlos. You did a great job. I consider you a good friend, too. Anyway, I appreciate this here. I appreciate that people are working hard out there. We hope there's no rain. And, Chairman, we're going to clean up, and I'm going to leave you one thing. What would it cost the county to send 1,500 volunteers out on a Saturday? We do it for nothing. And thank you for the equipment, the financial support, and the manpower too, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for what you do. Recognition of YWCA Stand Against Racism. It is April 28th, 2022 through May 1st, 2022. Tonight to receive is presented to Kelly McNeil from the YWCA Community Systems Development and Referral Specialist Livia Bain, YWCA Director of Child Care Resources and Referral. Come on up, ladies. All right, whereas all residents, regardless of race, creed, or ethnicity, deserve to be treated with dignity, respect, compassion, and justice. And whereas Winnebago County residents value initiatives that will end race-based disparities and make the world a more equitable, inclusive, and dignified place for all to live. And whereas the elimination of racism can be achieved only with the participation of all residents in dialogue, reflection, and action. And whereas the County of Winnebago supports YWCA Northwestern Illinois in its praiseworthy mission to eliminate racism, empower women, stand up for social justice, help families, and strengthen communities. And whereas the County of Winnebago proudly supports YWCA Northwestern Illinois in celebration of Stand Against Racism, a signature campaign of YWCA USA to build community among those who work for racial justice and raise the awareness about the negative impact of institutional and structural racism in our communities. Be it resolved that the County of Winnebago hereby declares April 28, 2022 as YWCA Stand Against Racism Day and encourage all residents, local businesses, educators, and community and faith-based organizations to celebrate diversity and advocate for the elimination of racism. Be it further resolved that April 28th through May 1st, 2022 is declared as YWCA Stand Against Racism Weekend.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to first of all say a big thank you to the entire board, and also thank you to Chairman Shirelli. Like you said, the YWCA, the Stand Against Racism, is their signature campaign for the YWCA USA. And the campaign helps to raise awareness about the negative impact of institutional and structural racism in our community. Through our collective efforts, we can root out injustice, transform institutions, and create a world that sees women, girls, and people of color the way we do. Powerful, equal, and unstoppable. Thank you all so much.
All right, we'll move on to number 6, the approval of the minutes. Can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 24th, 2022, and lay over the April 14th, 2022 minutes? Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Westcott seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Are there any board members opposed to that motion to approve? Clerk, can you please cast a yes for all members present? Number 7 is the consent agenda. This includes the raffle report and the auditor's report. May I entertain a motion to approve? Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Webster seconds that motion. Any discussion? Hearing none. Please cast a yes for all members present. Number 8 is the appointments. Tonight I am only placing up one person for the appointment of the Cherry Valley Fire Protection District. The compensation is $4,500 annually. That's $375 per month with certification classes. That is Mr. Carl Erickson, and that is for a reappointment. And that automatically lays over for 30 days. Next, we'll go on to reports of standing committees. The first is the Finance Committee. Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee has 6 items tonight. The first one's the ordinance for approval of the budget amendment for transfer for general fund to special revenue funds. This is to be laid over, but I'd like to motion and suspend the rules and vote on this tonight.
We have moved by Mr. Salgado to suspend the rules. Do we have second by Mr. Neighbors? Are there any members opposed to suspension of the rules this evening? Hearing none, please cast a yes for all members present. Rules are suspended. Mr. Salgado.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I move to approve the ordinance for approval of budget amendment for transfer from general fund to special revenue funds.
Moved to approve by Mr. Salgado. Is there a second by Ms. Fellers? Is there any discussion? Mr. Salgado.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just real quick, what's this about? It's no cost. It's just transferring negative budget transfers from the general fund to the different items, just like the Victim Impact Panel Fee Fund, Deferred Prosecution Fund, Circuit Clerk Grant Fund, and the Law Library Fund. So there is no cost. We're just transferring from the general fund to those particular funds.
Any questions from board members? Are there any board members opposed to this ordinance? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Number 3, Mr. Salgado.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The next item is ordinance for approval budget amendment to change part-time administrative assistant to full-time administrative assistant. This is to be laid over, but I'd like to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight.
Move to suspend by Mr. Salgado. Is there a second? Mr. Westcott seconds that motion. Are there any board members opposed to the suspension of the rules? Seeing none, please cast a yes for all members present. The rules are suspended. Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve the ordinance of approval budget amendment to change part-time administrative assistant to full-time administrative assistant.
Moved by Mr. Salgado. Is there a second? Ms. Crosby seconds. Discussion, Mr. Salgado.
Yes, just let everybody know this is an additional $11,539. This is for the purchasing department to help with other administrative tasks that are needed in that department.
Any board member discussion? Hearing none, please, are there any board members opposed to this ordinance? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Number 4, Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chiarelli. Our next item is ordinance for approval budget amendment to hire an emergency service and disaster agency as the coordinator. This is to be laid over, but I'd like to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight.
Moved by Mr. Salgado to suspend the rules, second by Mr. Arena. Are there any board members opposed to suspension of the rules this evening? Hearing none, please cast a yes for all members present. Rules are suspended. Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I move to approve ordinance for the approval of budget amendment to hire an emergency services and disaster agency as the coordinator.
Moved by Mr. Salgado. Is there a second? Mr. Arena seconds that motion. Discussion, Mr. Salgado.
Just real quick, this is essentially where they're going to hire a person out there, and the funds are going to come from the commissary fund to cover the salary on this individual.
Mr. Saganek, Chief Saganek. Yes.
Oh, there we go. The commissary funds are going to pay for the next budget amendment. The funding for this is just real quick in background. The city and the county have had an agreement for the last 3 years for as the coordinator position. The county has has budgeted and paying $122,000 to the city for the position, and the employee is actually by contract a employee of the city of Rockford. So the money for this is going to come from what's been budgeted in the $122,000.
Very good. Is any board member discussion? Ms. Gorel.
Would this be similar to a Homeland Security type of situation, or is it different?
Mr. Saganek, Chief Saganek, I apologize.
No, this is more in line with like a FEMA position. This person is the person who would be in charge of the Emergency Operations Center for events like we had with the Rockton fire, and then the rest of the year round would be coordinating, working with the city, county, and all the residents of the county to set up emergency plans for disasters or for other things that could affect the county. A tornado, a fire, whatever comes, our way here. This is the person that would coordinate the response.
Ms. Red? Thank you, Ms. Red. Any other discussion? Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to follow up on Earl's question, and just so everyone's aware, where we were hiring someone from the city of Rockford working part-time, kind of seemed to me on an almost as-needed basis. They were situated at the city of Rockford. This gives us the same amount of money we were spending, our own person in our office there full-time. So to me, it's a no-brainer. I think it's very beneficial for the entire county, and I commend the Sheriff's Department for, putting this all together and getting it done. Fully support it. Thank you.
Ms. Gorel.
Yes, I'd like to follow up. Is there any type of special training or education they need to hold this position?
Chief Saganic?
There's a whole host of training, and the person that we're hiring has some of that training in their background, and the rest of the training is training that we will provide going forward.
Ms. Red?
Yeah, I apologize, I don't have the resume in front of me, but the Nims Training, which is emergency disaster training provided by the government. There's other courses, training that this person's been through that are all disaster related, and again, it's training that's provided by the government. But I apologize, I don't have the resume in front of me. But there is a considerable amount of training, and not just in that field, but a lot of experience working in this community for the last 26 or 27 years.
I honestly say this is a critical position in the time of a disaster, to have a highly trained coordinator for preparedness, alignment, have relationships to understand how the county works, how disasters occur that could come through one part of the county and sweep through the other part of the county. So, very good work for the Sheriff's Department on this.
Just real quick, I thank you for the clarification. I jumped ahead of myself on the next position that was in there, and I said commissary, but it is from the contract that we're getting rid of from the city of Rockford to cover. It's already been budgeted, so I do thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Any other discussion from board members? Are there any board members opposed to this ordinance? Very good. Please cast a yes vote for all members present. Number 5, Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Shirelli. The next one's ordinance for approval of budget amendment, adding administrative assistant position in the Corrections Administration. This is to be laid over, but I'd like to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight.
Move to suspend by Mr. Salgado. Is there a second by Mr. McCarthy? Discussion, Mr. Salgado?
Yes, I'd like to move to approve the ordinance budget amendment, adding administrative assistant position in the Corrections Administration.
Very good. Did we vote on the suspension?
Thought we did, but
Yeah, I think we did. No? Okay, we'll call for the suspension vote again. Are there any board members opposed to the suspension? Hearing none, please cast a yes vote. And you also motioned, and a second by Mr. McCarthy, for the ordinance to be approved. Any further discussion on the ordinance?
yeah, just real quick, it's $28,168, and this is regarding administrative assistant to help with the pre-audit training, assistant citizens, inmate medical billing, keeping jail and body camera stats, and other administrative duties. And this is going to come from the commissary funds.
Any other discussion? Are there any board members opposed to this ordinance? Hearing none, please cast a yes for all members present. Number 6, Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item is resolution awarding the elevator electric services modernization for the administration building 2022 CIP.
Moved by Mr. Salgado, second by Mr. Huffman. Discussion, Mr. Salgado.
No, this is real quick. Wilson is the contractor for this on the amount of $63,525.
Any board member discussion? Mr. Arita.
Through the process in finance, this was debated for a while. The concern was that we only got one bid for the project because it was specialized. I just think that moving forward, we just need to try to figure out ways that we can get multiple bids on some of this stuff, even if it specialized and we have to go outside of area, but somehow we should be able to confirm that we're not overpaying for some of these services. I am going to vote in favor of it because I do appreciate the efforts that were made to get second bids. We just weren't able to do that. And but again, no matter what we're doing, somewhere in the state of Illinois, there's got to be other vendors that can also something to think about as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arena. Any other board member discussion?
If I may, Mr. Shirley?
Yes.
Thank you. Just to piggyback off, I agree with Mr. Arena, everything he said, but I just want for the record that in no way or shape or form that we're not following state statute. Just want to be clear on that. As we know, this is a specialized, so therefore, it's kind of hard to find someone in that particular, but anything, a $25,000, we have to go out for bid, get multiple 3 or more bids out there based on that. Since this is specialized, we had to take this route. But I agree with Mr. Reno 100%, but I just want that for the record that, we did follow the procurement rules on this.
Mr. Limark?
Yeah, I agree this needs to be done, but, and I'm not saying anything was done wrong, but I'll be voting no for this just based off of one bid. We're gonna do it in the future, why aren't we gonna do it now?
Thank you, Mr. Lamarck. Any other discussion? Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Okay, I see 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'll call a roll. Clerk, may you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Mr. Gurl. Mrs. Gorel. Mr. Hoffman.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Lindmark. Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McDonald. Mr. Neighbors.
Yes.
Mrs. Red. Mr. Salgado.
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Tassoni. Mr. Webster. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Arena. Mr. Booker.
Yes.
Mr. Butita. Mrs. Crosby. Ms. Fellers.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we have 14 board members yes, 5 board members no, 1 board member absent.
Very good. The resolution is approved. Number 7, Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our final item is a resolution to grant ARP funding to the AARC at Booker Center for capital repairs, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Salgado, second by Ms. Fellers. Ms. Red, any discussion, Mr. Salgado?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is for Booker Center. They have an annual cost of their different strategic plan in the amount of $422. We are looking to fund $134,080 for the roof, and so that's pretty much what we're doing. And I believe the city of Rockford is also going to match that, and then there's going to be some other funds from the state coming through. So this is something that they've have come through, requested through, I believe, host fees, correct me if I'm wrong, in the past. So this is where we decided ARP funding would be a good project for this.
Yes, that's correct. Ms. Red, did you have your hand up or no? Any discussion by board members? Very good. Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Seeing none, please cast a yes vote for all members present. Resolution is approved. Mr. Salgado.
Yes, just real quick, couple items. So there was 2 things that were covered in the Finance Committee that I want to make everybody aware of. The first, get it out of the way, everybody has heard about the campus-wide cameras. That was presented, $12.2 million. There was discussion about that as part of the ARP funding. Out of that, before that, there's been discussion about what other projects are out there with the public safety building, allocating, another $18.5 million, and what's left in the neighborhoods phase. So, it's my understanding Mr. Rickard will be presenting pretty soon the different projects that are out there based on what's been submitted for the ARP funding. so we can get a good idea on the different projects out there, just so everybody understands, that was presented, but I just want everybody to understand that, the projects will be, presented by Mr. Rickard, what he has, what has been submitted, and then obviously from that direction, if adjustments need to be made one way or the other, those will be made, just for that. The other piece, Mr. Butita reminded me of this, and if he wants to add additional, our auditors came out and presented our annual audit. The good thing is we have an unqualified opinion, which means there are no findings from a financial standpoint, which is good news. Kudos to Mr. Rickard, Molly Tarani, and the finance team for all their hard, dedicated work on that aspect of it. There are some recommendations, and maybe Mr. Butita wants to talk on that a little bit. There's discussion of the River Bluff, issues with cash flow and potentially their accounts receivable. Obviously, every single year, the sheriff's funds that are out there, accounts, trying to transfer them over to the general. That's part of it, and there was a little bit of a procurement piece of it that was addressed there in a bullet, but those are the high level. Everybody should have a packet, the CAFR and the audit, the management letter and everything like that that goes with it. If not, you can always ask Mr. Rickard, Mr. Thompson to get you a copy for that. Read it over, and if you have any questions on that. So I leave it open to Mr. Rickard and Mr. Butita if they have any other additional commentary.
Mr. Butita.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I did want to make just a few comments about Baker Tilly's audit report to us last week at the Finance Committee regarding year-ending 2021. So the general fund was relatively good news. We received $13 million over budget as far as revenue, and expenditures were $2.2 million under budget. And that didn't include any ARP funds. Another point that was, I think, trending in the right direction, both the general fund and the safety sales tax fund both had balances that exceeded the 25%. Figure that we've strived for to keep our funds at. So the other point that Baker Tilly made, I think was on the positive note, that our debt service compared to expenditures was 15%. Under 20% is considered good. So I would echo what Mr. Salgado said, that a lot of these things, especially the revenue, may be things that are beyond our control. It may be a one-time thing, but certainly the control of expenditures and debt management, the administration should be applauded from the top down on, and everybody in the departments that work on this to help us get to those numbers. Now, I just want to say real quickly that River Bluff was a mixed bag as far as Baker Tilly was concerned. The highlights of what they reported to us was the receivable balance decreased by 40%, which is good. So that left what they called a year-end negative cash position of $9.4 million. And that they considered was a considerable decrease. Now, the 9.4 represents all monies that have been transferred from the general fund to River Bluff over multiple years. So that's the position that we've been over. And I'm not sure how far that goes back, but I suspect it's probably 5 or 6 years that that cumulative number of 9.4. So the object there obviously is to stabilize that number so that we don't make it any higher. They also indicated that in 2021 then, the expenditures exceeded the revenue by 1.7 million, which I believe is a little less than we projected. And they indicated that delays in billing and resident accounts not being reconciled in a timely fashion, and better use of the point-click care healthcare system. If we can get improvement in those areas, that'll help our financial bottom line. So River Bluff's a mixed bag. We got things still to work on there, but things are trending in the right direction, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petito. Okay, Mr. Salgado. Oh, Ms. Red.
Thank you, Chairman. I haven't read the full report. How much of that money that's gone into, or where is it going, that's coming from the casino and the marijuana tax? How much have we received so far?
Mr. Rickert?
I will be given a report on the casino and marijuana tax report that's going to be at the next Finance Committee meeting. So I encourage, not only will there be a presentation on the finances and revenues related to that, we'll be doing a mid-year report to the Finance Committee, and we'll also be talking about all our projects at the next Finance Committee. So I encourage that this is going to be a very important meeting. I encourage all the board members, if you have an interest in that or you have an interest in projects that are going before the Finance Committee related to ARP, I encourage you to go to the next meeting. So there'll be a lot of information put out and a lot of detail on those very specific topics.
Ms. Red?
Thank you, Chairman. Will our $50,000 allowance be mentioned at that meeting, or no?
That will be brought up as a side note, but what we're looking at now are the ARP Phase 4, all the projects that were due to come in by the end of March, any requests for funding for special projects, for neighborhood activities, that'll be discussed. The member projects will be discussed only in the relevance of how they will impact the ARP Phase 4.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good?
That concludes our report.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Salgado. Got the Zoning Committee, Mr. Webster.
No report, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Move on to Economic Development Committee, Mr. Westcott.
Thank you, Chairman. We have one item for us. It's a resolution debating property taxes on property located at 3820 Westlake Village Drive, Winnebago, Illinois, is specifically identified, excuse me, as property index number 0925376-013 and commonly known as Westlake Village Golf Course, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Westcott. Is there a second by Mr. Sweeney? Any discussion from board members? Mr. Arena.
I say it says that the total abatement would not exceed $4 million. What are the taxes per year now on that property?
Mr. Dornbush?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's part of the statute with the 4 million, the state statute that you can't do that. So that's why that language is included in the beginning of the resolution, because it's for all taxes countywide. But the current taxes are at 45,000, just shy of 46,000 for right now. But the assessment's going to change, which is the kind of the kicker in this one. Currently, it's non-open space, non-agricultural property. So it has an assessed value of about $550,000. The previous owners, because Lynx Golf Courses has purchased it, but Swan Hills, who has ran it, have requested to have the assessment revert back to agricultural. I spent quite a bit of time with the Director of Supervisor Assessments Office, and there's like a 3-year delay. Then it'll drop down to an agricultural assessment, which will drop it from the 550,000, I think a little change on that, down to 110,000. But by establishing as a golf course, it'll be assessed as an open space assessment, which will actually be a 263,000, 264,000 assessment. So it's going to drop, but because he's going through his company and establishing as a golf course, instead of dropping down to 110,000, it'll drop down to 264,000 of assessed value, not fair market, but assessed value.
So do you have a monetary estimate of the total value of this assessment over the 10
The assessment
year?
over the 10 years is estimated at right around $25,000 for the county's portion, so about $2,500 a year.
That's it, $2,500 a year? Oh, okay. All right, great. I saw that $4 million number, and I was trying to wrap my head around.
Oh, yeah, no, that's just referring back to the statute language.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Thank you, Mr. Salgado.
Yeah, just along those lines, you know, I think that's where we were getting at is what's the Winnebago County tax levy piece? It's only our portion, not everybody else's. They have to go to they want to get that abated, they have to go to all those taxing bodies, but it's just for Winnebago County.
Correct. Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Booker?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is much thanks to Chris Dornbush and Jazz Bellich in the Economic Development Office for all their hard work in getting this accomplished for the new owners of the golf course. It's also a benefit to the homes out there the residents out there whose homes dropped in value when the golf course closed. This will raise the home values much to the appreciation of the residents out there, but also to the high schools of Winnebago and Pecatonica. They depended on that golf course as their home course. So while it was closed, those two schools had to use Ingersoll Golf Course as their home course, but now this opens up the ability for them to practice, have their home meets at the golf course, and again, to raise the home values out there, and employment opportunities as well. So I have also given $20,000 of my ARP funds to assist financially in renovation and the reopening of this golf course. So it's huge for us. It's huge for my district and the people I represent. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. Any other discussion? Okay, are there any board members opposed to this motion to approve this resolution? All right, hearing none, please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Westcott.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Westcott.
Thank you.
Operation and Administrative Committee, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Operations Committee has two resolutions for us this evening. The first, authorizing the execution of a renewal agreement with Reliance Standard to provide term life insurance and accidental death and dismemberment insurance, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. McDonald, second by Mr. Butita. Is there any discussion, Mr. McDonald?
I have none.
Board member discussion. Okay, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Hearing, seeing none, please cast a yes vote for all members present. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is a resolution authorizing the execution of a renewal agreement with Reliance Standard for voluntary life insurance, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. McDonald. Is there a second? Ms. Red, seconds. Very good. Thank you. Discussion, Mr. McDonald.
Not for me, sir.
Any board member discussion? Hearing, seeing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes vote for all members present.
That concludes the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Public Works Committee, Mr. Tassoni.
My turn. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right. We have, I think, 9 items on the agenda here, looks like. First item is our Resolution 22-010. It's a resolution authorizing an agreement with the state of Illinois to install street lights at Weldon Road, US Business 20. I would so move. Speak to it.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Booker. Mr. Tassoni.
This is out in Mr. Booker's corridor there. It's Weldon Road and US 20, bypass 20 there. It's a dark area, somewhat rural there. There's been some accidents over the years. Going to be overhead stoplights on the north and south sides of that intersection, and it will be reimbursed from the state of Illinois. Overhead streetlights.
Correct. Any other discussion? Ms. Red.
I don't believe they would be, not for the illumination required out there and what's necessary. That stand correct, Mr. Molina? Yeah, he's giving me the nod, yes.
LED lights. Any other discussion? Okay, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Number 3, Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 22-011. It's a resolution authorizing the award of bid for the 2022 pavement patching program. I would move and speak to it as well.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Tassoni.
This is for some, this is MFT funds, and a portion of 16,000 plus will be reimbursed by the city of Rockford.
Very good. Any other board member discussion? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Okay, please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. Next item, Resolution 22-012, is a resolution authorizing the award of bid from, for Latham Road resurfacing from Meridian Road to Owen Center, appropriating Rebuild Illinois funds. I'd so move.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Booker. Mr. Tassoni.
That's it.
Okay, is there any board member discussion? All right, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Okay, please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. Next item, Resolution 22-013. It's a resolution authorizing the award of bid for Latham Road and Bell School Road pipe culvert replacements. I would so move.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Neighbors. Any discussion? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Okay, please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. Next item, Resolution 22-014. It's a resolution authorizing local public agency agreement for federal participation for 2 box culvert replacements on Gleesman Road and for the appropriation of local sheriff funds. I would so move.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Lindmark. Discussion. Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Number 7, Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. This 22-015 is a resolution authorizing the engineering services agreement with Willett Hoffman and Associates to provide construction engineering services for the replacement of those 2 prior box culverts.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this motion? Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. Next item, 22-016, is a resolution authorizing an agreement between the County of Winnebago and the City of Rockford for pavement repairs on Bell School Road. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. McCarthy. Discussion. Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. Our final resolution this evening is Resolution 22-017. It's a resolution authorizing an agreement between the County of Winnebago and the Village of Pecatonica for improvements to Pecatonica Road and the jurisdictional transfer of a section of road. I would so move and speak to it as well.
Moved by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Booker. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. This is for us to give jurisdiction to the Village of Pecatonica there. We're anticipating a $300,000 cost in next year's budget, but then Village of Pecatonica will take over jurisdiction of that section.
Very good. Any other discussion? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
That concludes the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tassoni. Okay, we'll move on to the Public Safety and Judiciary Committee. Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report.
Thank you, Mr. Earl. Move on to unfinished business. Tonight we have an appointment. This is up for up for passage. It's for the Four Rivers Sanitation Authority. Compensation is $6,000 a year. Ms. Ginger Haas, it's a new appointment. Is there a motion to approve? By Mr. Sweeney, second by Mr. Earl. Is there any discussion on this appointment? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to appointing Ms. Ginger Haas? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Number 11, new business. Is there any new business in front of the county board? Ms. Crosby.
In discussion with labor extensively, as well as
Ms. Fellers, regarding the amending the criteria for determining what constitutes a responsible bidder on projects. And it's passed the state's attorney, and I understand, and it's been represented to me that the chairman has sat in these meetings as well.
Correct.
Good. And the language has pretty much been hammered out. So I would like to move that it go to committee and be reviewed and for passage, and I refer it to the Economic Development Committee. And I so move.
Moved by Ms. Crosby, second by Ms. Fellers. Is there discussion?
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Would that not go through operations? Why is that an economic development tool?
Can I have a, Ms. LaFacaria?
Thank you, Chairman. So the county board did pass organizational structure in December of 2020. Pursuant to that resolution, it lays out what each committee is responsible for. And one of the duties or responsibilities of Operations and Administrative Committee is reviewing ordinances, policies, and procedures, which would not be a functional responsibility of economic development. So it is my opinion that it should go through Operations. Should the board want it to go to a different committee, then I would think we would have to suspend the rule that requires referrals be sent to the appropriate committee, which is 2-64 of the county's code.
Ms. Crosby?
I concur with that. Ms. Fellers, who serves on Economic Development, has spent a tremendous amount of time and effort in this. Would it be inappropriate to do a joint committee meeting between those two committees?
Ms. Vaughn?
There's nothing in the rules about that, so I would defer to the board.
Okay, so I would amend my motion that it go to the joint committees of Economic Development and Operations. And I would need a second.
Point of order.
Second by Ms. Fellers. Mr. McDonald?
Another point of order, if you would, sir.
Point of order, Ms. Vaughn?
I don't understand how it affects economic development. I don't understand why that committee would be a part of this.
According to the rules, it's not.
Right.
Unless the board suspends the rules and changes
Correct.
and votes.
So there's,
So I believe your motion is still incorrect, Ms. Crosby. by
So do I
adjourning
move
vote.
to suspend the rules? Is that the appropriate procedure?
Yes, Mr. Gurl.
Just a clarification, we're making motions, seconding, it's new business, doesn't it have to be on the agenda before the board can actually?
Ms. Vaughn?
thank you,
Clarification?
Chairman. So the issue with this item or this new business is that Ms. Crosby wants it to go to committee, and typically we establish agendas today and tomorrow. So if she wants it to go to a different committee that's not the appropriate committee, then the board has to make has to vote on it. It's because it's out of the ordinary, in my opinion.
I understand that, but the original motion was just a motion to move this to Economic Development Committee.
Then she withdrew that motion.
She withdrew that motion, but made another motion, but doesn't the business have to be on the agenda? I understand it's an administrative process, deciding where this goes, but should new business just be referred to the chair to make the appropriate move to the appropriate committee, I guess? It seems like we're voting on something that we don't know about, or at least some members don't know about.
So,
Go ahead, Ms.
Chairman, if I may. So it's not voting on the actual item. It's just which agenda it should go to, which committee it should go to. So if the board rather not take a vote on it and the committee chairmen discuss it, but I just don't think that's appropriate because there's a conflict on which agenda it goes to. So
Okay.
it's not the actual ordinance that's being voted on or discussed by any means.
Just discussing which committee it goes to,
Correct.
basically. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gurl. Ms. Crosby?
So I would amend my amendment that this go to the Operations Committee. And I so move.
All right, so you withdrew your last motion for a joint committee meeting.
Yep,
And now you're making another motion to
send it to Operations.
send it to Operations Committee. And Ms. Feller seconds that. Is there any discussion on that? Ms. Vaughn raises her hand.
Thank you, Chairman. So if it's going to operations,
It's-
which is the appropriate
It's appropriate
committee,
committee,
all of that is not needed now.
correct. So the board does not need to take action if that's the appropriate committee.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mr. Curl.
yeah,
So it doesn't need a vote.
correct.
Correct.
Because it's going to the
Doesn't need a
appropriate
motion.
committee.
Never getting back.
Mr. Tassoni.
I guess, are we moving on from that?
Yes.
And just, if I could, Mr. Rickard, if it's appropriate, I am not available at next finance meeting, but I am very interested. Will there be some type of maybe PowerPoint or presentation that could be emailed to some that cannot make it?
I'd be glad to mail copies of all the materials that are going to go to the Finance Committee to board members that are not available. I'll make it available to all board members. I'll send it out in advance.
Thank you.
Mr. Butita.
Thank you. I found tonight's presentation by Carlos Molinas very helpful, giving us an idea of what's going on in the department. And I noticed in the booklet that was handed out, the financial audit, that the chart of organization has the county board aligned to the county engineer, the highway department, also to the county administrator, and to the board of health. I suggest that we also include the mental health board line to the county board as reported. And I'd also suggest that presentations by the mental health board and the board of health would be very helpful, much as Mr. Lean is hopeful in us and having a good understanding of what's going on in those institutions.
Very good. Any other new business in front of the county board? Okay, we'll move on to announcements and communications. Clerk Gamal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The items listed below were received as correspondence. Also, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everyone that their statement of economic interest is due tomorrow. So please do not delay. Please get this into the Winnebago County Clerk's office. We close at 5.
Very nice. Mr. McCarthy.
Here we go. Green. I just wanted to acknowledge that this month, April, is Autism Awareness Month. And I know due to the number of proclamations we had here at the county board this past Saturday, I made and provided a proclamation to Easter Seals, in which they were having an event over at Hyundai on Perryville. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention to the other county board members, that we've also presented it on your behalf as well. And it was kind enough that Chairman Shirelli accompanied me on such an honor over at the Hyundai dealership on Perryville. So,
very good, Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Dornbush, you have your hand up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow up with everybody. You all had a spreadsheet on your desk. That's the ARP $50,000, just so you're aware of. Board members have submitted. There's some ideas of some of the projects. They're not all on there, but they're all, if you might have talked to me verbally or are submitting them, it gives you some of the stages. If you're looking for ideas, you can piggyback on those or have your own ideas, but I'll try to keep you updated from month to month to keep you guys aware of that and to spend your money by the end of September. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Dornbush. Any other communications? Mr. Webster, motions to adjourn. Is there a second by Mr. Sweeney? Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you.
What's the date today? Does one of your districts go west of North Main when you get to the railroad tracks?
Thank you.
Goes what follows the railroad tracks, and it comes back down to Auburn? All right, I'll have the gal call you. She wanted to know about the monies that are given out. And I gotta figure out who's the one that has